Actions. Work header. Chapter text. He still knew to try not to get his hopes up this time, but it sounded like he was happy to address your most likely concerns, she said offhandedly. Gabriel looked up with his eyebrows raised ever so slightly. He's already prepared to take the proper precautions against athlete's foot and the chlorine, and if you insist he takes his bodyguard with him, he said he would do so. I certainly would hope so, Gabriel remarked lightly, looking down at his monitor again and swiping 2 fingers across it. I assume there are lifeguards on duty. Yes, monsieur, and a first aid station, if Adrian is correct. Shall I double check for you? Gabriel looked up at her again, taking note of Adrian's initiative, Natalie hoped, and then seemed to shrug off any further interest in the conversation. Provided this outing does not conflict with any of his previous commitments, I will allow him to go if his bodyguard accompanies him and he takes all appropriate precautions against these, most likely concerns of mine. Let me know the date and times from him as soon as possible. Yes, monsieur. Natalie inclined her head respectfully and left the room, finally allowing herself a smile. That interaction could not have gone any better, as far as she was concerned. Tilda. What ya doing? Plagg asked, appearing behind Adrian's shoulder to leer at his 3 computer monitors. Research. Actions. Actions. Work header. Chapter text. Ah. Adrian jumped and closed the browser window in a panic. He glared at Plagg over his shoulder, his face bright red. You were supposed to watch TV while you ate your cheese. I finished my cheese and the stream started buffering, so I got bored, Plagg said. And now I can guess where all the bandwidth went. Don't you play detective on me. My watching videos, any videos, on the internet would not use up enough bandwidth to slow down streaming on the TV. You're just nosy. Hey, I'm not judging, Plagg said, shrugging his tiny shoulders. I find cooking shows to be entertaining because I love cheese, and you find porn entertaining because you love a girl, and this is the next best thing to personal experience, I guess. Adrian spluttered furiously and flexed his fingers in midair as if fighting the urge to squeeze Plagg's insides out through his ears. Quote. I just have the advantage of being able to actually consume the cheese I love whenever I want to, as long as it's provided to me. You gotta find whatever outlets you can, I get it. You know, I'm suddenly feeling extremely curious about how much easier it would be to just provide you packets of cheese powder for your rations. Adrian growled. Or maybe nacho cheese sauce. Sounds interesting, I'll happily try it sometime, said Plagg, not at all intimidated. Well, don't let me keep you from your studies, I'll go check on my cheese porn. Adrian held his breath and counted to 10 before pulling his homework sheets towards him. Actions. Work header. Chapter text. In spite of how tightly controlled his upbringing had been, being a teenage boy and having unlimited internet access meant that Adrian was just as prone to switching his browser to incognito mode on random occasions. Getting through the 30-plus required hours of sex education in school last year meant that he knew better than to look at pornography as any kind of reference for real life, and in any case, he was rather picky. Being the pure-hearted, if not pure-minded guy that he wasn't interested in watching a woman being sexually degraded or treated roughly in any way, even as part of play. He was a hopeless romantic through and through, and if sex didn't involve him worshipping his lady in every way she deserved, then what was even the point? He slumped forward in his chair, his elbows coming down on the desktop, and rubbed his face. Now wasn't a good time to fantasize about Ladybug, he knew, when he was supposed to be working on his homework. That's what he had been doing, before he spaced out and somehow gotten distracted enough to mindlessly open his internet browser. A knock sounded at his door, and he instantly sat up straight and hoped his face wasn't still visibly flushed. Yes. Natalie appeared. Your father says you go, as long as your bodyguard goes with you, you wear your water shoes, and shampoo afterwards, she said. Adrian's heart leapt. Really? Thank you, Natalie. And thank my father for me, will you? Actions. Work header. Chapter text. Natalie smiled and nodded. I will. Let me know when you need to be dropped off. As soon as she had closed the door behind her, Adrian flung himself onto his bed and scrambled for his phone. I can't believe he's letting me go, he'd better not change his mind on me. Practically vibrating with excitement, Adrian brought up Nino's contact, only for Plag to come flying out of nowhere and block his view. Don't you want to call Marinette first? He asked pointedly. Just to make sure she'll be happy to see you. I don't know if that's necessary. Adrian hedged nervously. I mean, Nino just as well admitted he's trying to play matchmaker with you too, Plag pointed out casually. But what about Marinette? Adrian frowned, slightly confused as to what Plag was trying to get at, and then realized that Aaliyah and Nino could possibly be setting up this double date without telling Marinette to surprise her, but if the worst-case scenario he was worried about turned out to be true, then showing up on Nino's invitation alone could ruin Marinette's entire day. You're right. I should at least make sure she knows what's going on. If she doesn't know Nino and Aaliyah are trying to set me up with her, then, well, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. He didn't have Marinette's number, so he texted Aaliyah, hoping she wouldn't make the exchange awkward. Actions. Work header. Chapter text. Adrian. Hey, Aaliyah, can you send me Marinette's number? As soon as he sent the text off, he immediately started second-guessing the way he had phrased his request. If Aaliyah asked him why he wanted Marinette's number, what could he say that wouldn't sound like a pathetic lie? Aaliyah. Oh sure. It's 33636768 winking face. What's the occasion? Adrian. Thanks. No particular occasion, I just wanted to confirm our double date at the aquatic center with everyone. I'm free tomorrow after school, if you all are. Adrian hoped that sounded casual enough, and that it carried no suggestion of romance whatsoever. Aaliyah. Read, gotcha winking face. Winking face, see you then. Adrian squinted suspiciously at the two winking emojis. Did she not believe him? If I try to defend myself, I'll just sound even more suspect, he thought. It's probably best to just let her think what she wants. He created a new contact for Marinette and copied down her number. Actions. Kudos. Comments. Actions. Work header. Chapter text. Adrian squinted suspiciously at the two winking emojis. Did she not believe him? If I try to defend myself, I'll just sound even more suspect, he thought. It's probably best to just let her think what she wants. He created a new contact for Marinette and copied down her number. There, that was easy enough, no big deal. Now I just have to call her. He stared down at his phone, and his proud smile slowly melted off his face. Or, maybe I should just text her. Or I could just call Nino and leave it at that. Oh, what's the matter, cool cat? Plag's voice jeered from behind his shoulder. Too shy to call a girl who isn't Chloe. Or Leah. If you can't even handle this much, how are you ever gonna up your game and put the moves on your ladybug love? Adrian scowled and immediately hit call, without thinking, and then started to panic as soon as the ringing started. Oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no. I haven't figured out what I'm gonna say to her. Plag, what do I do? Tilda tilde tilde. When her phone rang, Marinette tossed her bathing suit onto her chaise lounge and picked it up, but froze when she saw who was calling. Actions. Kudos. Comments. Accessibility. Actions. Work header. Chapter text. Adrian. Marinette cried. Adrian is calling me. She glanced around frantically, bouncing on the spot, and eventually located Aaliyah, who was climbing down from her bed with her magazine spread of Adrian in one hand. What? Well, hurry and answer it, what are you waiting for? Aaliyah said, sounding excited. But I dunno what to say. I dunno how to talk to him. Answer it. Aaliyah practically snarled, her eyes bugging out. Marinette fumbled with her phone and dropped it, and let out an anguished whine as if she had accidentally dropped a baby, but she also seemed too paralyzed with terror to pick it up. Aaliyah swooped down, grabbed the phone, hit answer, and thrust it into Marinette's hands before lunging over the chaise lounge and ducking down as if to disappear from the room. Marinette stared, mouth agape, at the phone in her hands cluelessly, until she heard the voice of the person on the other end of the line. Hello. Hello. Slowly, with her heart pounding and her hands trembling with nerves, Marinette brought the phone up to her ear and tried to figure out how her voice worked. Hello. Marinette. Is that you? Yeah, of course. She giggled nervously and fidgeted. Who else would it be? Nobody I can think of. Adrian said, his voice sounding slightly higher pitched than usual. I just thought I'd make sure. At first, I didn't hear. Never mind, it doesn't matter. Listen, so, I just got a call from Nino, and he said, he and Aaliyah and, you were interested in inviting me to. That doesn't sound right at all, his voice trailed off. Basically, he proposed a double date. He seemed to sound the words out hesitantly as if he wasn't sure the phrase was appropriate to use in this situation. To the aquatic center. Me, and, well, you, Aaliyah, Nino, and me. And I guess I wanted to make sure that you were okay with that. Adrian's voice trailed off again. What am I even saying? Actions. Kudos. Comments. Actions. Work header. Chapter text. Marinette blinked several times, feeling like her brain was working too slowly to keep up with whatever Adrian was trying to say. He didn't sound like his usual self at all, and it was really throwing her off. Why did he sound so nervous? She struggled to recall what he had just said and make sense of it, as Aaliyah watched her from across the room like a tiger. You, Aaliyah, Nino, me, the aquatic center. Oh, right. Yeah, the aquatic center. Yeah, that's. Wait, what about it? Aaliyah sighed and slapped a palm to her face. Adrian seemed to completely space out as well, and Marinette had to remind herself that, yes, that was definitely Adrian's voice on the other end, he just wasn't acting like he usually did. But why? What was this all about? I really would love to go with you all, but I guess, she thought she heard him heave a sigh. I guess with the way I've been acting weird around you lately, I didn't want to go along with anything you didn't feel comfortable with. The way Nino told me about it, I wasn't sure if you really knew about it, or if he and Aaliyah were trying to set up some kind of surprise or something. Marinette didn't know what to say in answer to this. Yes, she knew, but she couldn't let him know that she knew what Aaliyah and Nino were really planning. It sounded as though maybe Adrian thought that she might the one in the dark and that he was being recruited as an accomplice, which was probably okay to let him think, but, was it just misleading enough, or too close to the truth? Actions. Kudos. Comments. Actions. Work header. Chapter text. Aside from that, what was this about her being uncomfortable with something? Why do you think I wouldn't be okay with it? She tried hesitantly. Because you've been acting weird. What do you mean? Adrian didn't answer immediately, and Marinette tried to picture what his face looked like right now. Could he actually be feeling shy? Anxious, even? It wasn't that she had never seen Adrian feeling uncomfortable in some way or other. He had at least one hug and one kiss forced on him every school day by Chloe, and he had had more than his fair share of unwanted attention from both the adoring public and dangerous supervillains. But this situation felt different somehow, maybe because it was just between the two of them, instead of just her watching Adrian from outside as a third person. The thought of sharing a private moment with him, even an awkward one, made her smile, and she almost forgot what they were talking about. Fortunately, Adrian broke the silence after some hesitation. You know, that time when His voice sounded constricted from the effort it took to force himself to speak, and Marinette frowned, suddenly worried about him. When I sniffed you, and touched your face and, generally imposed on your personal space. Marinette glanced at Aaliyah, who was watching her with a confused expression on her face. It suddenly occurred to Marinette that Adrian might be embarrassed for anyone else, even Aaliyah, to know exactly what had happened between them. Marinette hadn't minded his attention a bit, of course, but it was unusual behavior for him. She remembered what Nino and Aaliyah had said about him needing to maintain his image, and the shame on his face and in his voice when he tried to apologize, and suddenly his discomfort took on new meaning. Actions. Kudos. Comments. Actions. Work header. Chapter text. If I wasn't in love with him, maybe I would have been weirded out by how friendly he's been with me. But he has no idea that I like him, so he's worried I might think he's been acting like a creep. One moment, Marinette's mind had been 75% occupied with keeping her cool while talking to her crush. In the next, she became wholeheartedly focused on reassuring her friend. Glancing at Aaliyah, she held up a finger, turned around, and climbed up to her bed with her phone still pressed to her ear. Settling down, she racked her brain for the right words to put Adrian at ease. Adrian. You don't have to keep apologizing, she said gently, keeping her voice down. I really didn't mind, and maybe some people, maybe some people might have been a little taken aback, I dunno, but most people would have been really creeped out. Adrian mumbled, just loud enough for her to hear. He sounded so ashamed of himself, she wondered whether she was meant to hear at all. Adrian, listen, she urged gently. It's okay, really. We're friends, aren't we? Yes, he said, starting to sound a bit more hopeful. Right. So I know you well enough to know that you're not a creep, okay? You really didn't make me feel uncomfortable. But if you ever do, I promise I'll let you know, if that helps you feel better. Just, please don't feel bad, okay? I don't want you to feel uncomfortable around me, either. I don't either, he said, sounding very relieved. Marinette could swear she could hear the grateful smile on his face, and her heart did a happy little jig. Thank you, Marinette. I'm really glad to have you as a friend. Actions. Kudos. Comments.